Hello, my name is Greta Harrison. Welcome to Born Fabulous Podcast, Season 3, Episode 30. This is the final episode of Season 3. The theme of this season is young adults with intellectual disabilities living full lives of independence and interdependence. With love, gratitude, and deep respect to all the young adults and parents in Season 30, this is my favorite episode of the entire season. From the very beginning, you will hear profound statements from Jamie Minotti and Mark McLarry, words that every employer in the U.S. and beyond need to hear. Work is so vital to a full life and eventual independence for everyone. That includes people with disabilities. This is the last of 3 episodes featuring Jamie and Mark, who are co-founders and managing partners of My Yard Live Beer Company in San Marcos, California, a suburb of San Diego. My Yard Live has a unique mission. Their mission seeks to create a sustainable, family-friendly refuge with activities for all ages, live entertainment, quality food and libations, as well as unique leisure games with a focus on building a stronger community. Their mission further states they will create a paradigm shift in the way that communities interact, play, and bond by inventing an inclusive and family and adult-friendly gathering space that has the ability to be replicated in the Western United States and beyond. This mission organically led to the hire of James Zoul when My Yard Live opened in 2019, months before the COVID pandemic hit. James's job has grown over his years with My Yard Live. James happens to have Down syndrome. Now let's go straight to my favorite interview. Yeah. So across the U.S., people with developmental disabilities have very low employment rates. We all know this. We've alluded to it in this conversation. The majority of employers are afraid and they're unaware that this vast population can be a real benefit to their businesses. What can you say to them directly to help appease their fears of the unknown?
Don't be scared. Don't be so scared. So, and I'm sorry, I just real quick. So, as a business owner and entrepreneur, you do nothing but take risks. That is your job to take risks and risks of opening a business and risks of bringing on employees and who the employees are that you bring on and screening and retention, all that. You're working with people, you're working with community, you're working with finances, you're working with pandemic. It's full of risks. So if the biggest risk you take is taking a chance on a person that has special needs, that's the absolute smallest risk you could take in your business, and the smallest risk you could take in what you operate on a day-to-day basis. It really is. And I'm going to speak for ourselves. This has been nothing but beneficial to me personally, me professionally, our business, our team, everybody we work with, our investors, the community, the Chamber of Commerce, the city, you name it. There has been nothing negative or detrimental to anything that we've done with James or anybody else that we worked with people with special needs. And one of the people that we haven't mentioned that I need to mention now, because I think it really brings this whole conversation to the next level, is we work with a baker, Kevin the baker. He's an entrepreneur, he's a business owner, and Kevin's mom reached out to us 5 or 6 months ago and said, my son is a baker, and he has a company, Kevin the baker, and he also has autism. And if I brought in some samples, would you guys try some samples? We're having a tough time getting his baked goods into places. And I see that you employ people with special needs. And I've read the stories about the 4 dudes, et cetera, et cetera. And we say, absolutely, bring them in. Some of the best baked goods that we've ever tried, the team has ever tried. And the guys in the back, even who have been baking for years, tried and said, this is one of the best brownies that we've ever tried. And so from that point on, we bring in Kevin the baker's brownies, and we make a brownie skillet out of Brown Skillet Sunday out of his brownies. And he's been supplying us with brownies ever since. And so
number one seller too. Number one seller on our desserts.
Number one dessert seller that we have. And so it goes well beyond employment of people with special needs and what their abilities are and what they can do and what they can't do and the whole thing. And it has to do with just having good people connected with your business. And that's what it's all about for us.
And you're supporting another entrepreneur because he's an entrepreneur, just like anybody else is an entrepreneur. And you gave him a chance, just like every entrepreneur needs a chance when they're trying to break in. That's great.
And Jamie nailed it as far as that question. And I was just going to add that, every quarter we put out a quarterly review. And this past one, we updated them on this grant that we applied for and everything, and what we've been doing, working with people with disabilities and everything. And most of the time we don't hear anything from them. But when we talk about things like projects like this, it's when we actually hear back, they're saying, that's great what you're doing, working with people with disabilities. So, it's even from a business standpoint, investment standpoint, it's a great thing too, because they love to see what we're doing for our community.
That's good. And they see that how it's also helping your bottom line. They see that firsthand. So, okay, if you could change the business world in all our communities to make them more inclusive, what would you do?
Well, that's definitely a loaded question. I think that it really has to start. It has to be all encompassing, as in it has to start with the individual. Then it also has to include businesses. It has to include world leaders. It has to include governments. Like, it's going to take all these components to actually make this change, in my opinion. Like it can't just be one individual business or an individual person. It's going to take a village, in my opinion.
And a tsunami.
And a tsunami.
Yeah. And what about you, Jamie?
I think there's a buzz and trends, and rightfully so, of DEI in businesses, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's been a big movement in that, and a big movement in company culture, and in a lot of a lot of movement surrounding those two areas. And I think, as I talk about DEI with folks in and out of our industry, and culture in and out of our industry, one thing that I think is missing out of that DEI acronym is in accessibility. And so when we talk about diversity and equity, inclusion, and accessibility and company culture, I don't think there's any one thing that could be better for all of that and the growth of all of that, beyond employment of folks with disabilities and special needs. And I think it's across the board. All of those things get better. We get better as professionals, our companies get better, the bottom lines get better, everything gets better. And so creating more conversations like this, and creating, like Mark mentioned earlier, I think people are scared to talk, right? Because, oftentimes, and I appreciate you for correcting me earlier in the conversation, but oftentimes there's so many moving parts of what should be said and not said, and what used to be said and what can be said, but you put this in front of that and that behind this, and here's the acronym, and this is the new way we say things, that people become scared about talking about it. And I think making it normal to have conversations, and making it normal to say things wrong and be corrected, and have that conversation about, that's the way we used to say things, but now we say things in this way. But not letting those things become a barrier to having those conversations and making it normal to hire people with special needs and to work with people with special needs and to talk to people with special needs and to talk about disabilities and talk about those things. And I think the more we can normalize it and break down those barriers of what those acronyms are and what those terminologies are, and I know how important they are, because I understand the history. I grew up in a time where saying somebody retarded was normal. Like I grew up in that time, so I understand the importance of progression, but I also understand the importance of making it normal. And I think if there's anything we can thank June for, and James for, and Jim for, and Beth for, and all those people that we work with, is to make it normal and make it okay that we have our front of house venue manager who has never worked with people with special needs in his entire life, and making it normal for him to have that conversation, and making it okay for him to say things in a way that isn't, correct, isn't politically correct, but also making it normal in a way to have that conversation and saying, hey, this is the way we say things. This is the way we do things. This is the way things act, are work right now in our sector, in our industry, and understanding the way we do things in our industry, and understanding how things can come together and meld. I can remember the first time I brought up living in, a group home or group home kind of environment with, June and Beth, in that conversation that took place, in the movement towards independent living, and the movement towards, and that was eye-opening to me. And that was really an eye-opening conversation. And I think having those conversations, having these conversations, and being okay to be wrong and be corrected, and moving on from that. Because I don't think, in our environment and the people that we work with in our community, no one wants to be offensive. No one wants to be wrong. No one wants to, I don't want to say demonize, but nobody wants to be in a place where they're trying to limit people with special needs in our community, in our world, in our circles. And I know that's not all circles, but having that comfort level. And I think June, Jim, and James, first and foremost, in developing that relationship, has created that comfort level to the point where Mark's, sitting down, as he always has, with his sister-in-law, having a conversation, and now our entire team is able to have that conversation. And I think creating that normalcy and being able to do that is going to catapult this thing beyond anything we can do into the future.
I love both of your answers. There are different points of view, but you're both correct, in my opinion. And Jamie, when you're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the biggest rub on most people is that usually people with disabilities are not part of that conversation. It's not part of that conversation. Even though all marginalized groups should be part of that conversation, they're just not even considered. It's just an afterthought. So first of all, DEI should be everywhere, and it should include people with disabilities. We don't want to step on anybody else's toes, any other marginalized groups. Nobody wants to take away anything from anybody else. They just want to be included. So that's my takeaway on that. And everything that you said, I just love. And you're talking about how everything is spreading, again, organically, one person at a time. Going back to what Mark was saying, how it's going to take so many different parts of our world and our society to make a massive change. And I said it would take a tsunami, and I was half joking and half serious there. But the truth is, you guys are doing it one starfish at a time. Every employee, every customer, every interaction with the media, every interaction with the community, you're doing it one starfish at a time. And that's very, very important too. You don't know what person you're dealing with. Maybe you have a 10-year-old coming, and they're so used to seeing people with disabilities there, and then the venue, they will be more aware and inclusive of people with disabilities in their school and in their life. And they might grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or a business owner, and that will translate. So I love everything that you guys said. I now understand why June is so in love with My Yard Live and its leadership. And I was so excited to talk to you for all these months. So I love it. You guys are giving me lots of material for memes. I'm going to be making lots of memes for social media out of your material. You're giving me lots.
I always wanted to be a meme.
You're good. Your quotes are going to be lots of memes. Go ahead, Mark.
I wanted to like you nailed it on the head, one starfish at a time, because with everything going on in this world, it's times are tough right now. I mean, you just across the board, right? And when people talk about, well, what can you do to make a change, right? I think the only solution is to make that change within your own personal space, your life space, right? And if everyone were to do that, that change would happen.
You got it. Yeah, I agree. And you're absolutely right. Is there anything else that you all wanted to say that we haven't talked about? I'm so glad you brought up, again, remind me, what is the name of the baker?
Kevin
the Baker. I am so glad that you brought up Kevin the Baker. Is there anything else that you wanted to say that we haven't talked about?
We are currently getting ready to brew the 4 wise men. That's our next project.
Wise dudes.
Wise dudes. The 4 wise dudes.
The 4 wise dudes. And when is that launch going to be?
So we're brewing it on November 18th, and it's going to be a winter IPA. And I was going to say earlier when we were talking, the release is going to be December 10th. So you might want to try and mark that calendar for a trip out to San Diego to be a part of the release celebration.
I am going to be making a trip. I don't think it'll be that soon, but I am going to be making a trip. I promise you. What would are you, just so we can get a idea of how often, is it like every 2 or 3 months that there's a launch? Is that about what it is?
Yeah, it's really hit or miss. And the reason I say that is because sometimes with some of the beers, we'll do bigger batches and we'll can it and we'll put it out into the community, into stores. And then some of them will be smaller batches and they'll go to, a few different pubs and then be poured around here. So it really varies. And we base it on kind of the demand of it. So once we see the other one kind of selling out, we ramp up to do another one. So we're trying to get them to like a quarterly, like a 3-month.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seemed like. Now, I'm in Virginia. You guys are in California. Can somebody in another state, do you ship to other states?
We only distribute in San Diego County.
Yeah, not at this time. We don't do other states at this time.
Okay, not at this time. But when you expand in the future, who knows what the future holds, right?
Yep.
You could end up. But I'm saying, we might see My Yard Live beer in the stores someday in the future. Who knows, right?
Hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. Okay. Well, I thank you so much for your time and for all that you do. It's been a pleasure getting to know you all.
Me too.
I hope the world becomes more like you. If just one business learns from you, we have all made a difference today. I'm hoping it'll be more than one business that learns from you, but I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invitation and giving us a platform to have a conversation like this. It's been great, really, really meaningful to us and the business that people kind of look to us in this way. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it's great. Having these conversations like this just kind of, it amps us back up, just makes us amped and ready to keep, charge the world, so.
And you're changing the world. You are changing the world one interaction at a time. I love that. And I thank you guys again. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the 30th and last episode of Born Fabulous Podcast 3rd season. This was the last of 3 episodes with Jamie Minotti and Mark McLarry. Please keep in mind that this interview was recorded in the fall of 2023, so any dates or promotions mentioned will not be applicable. Regardless, I hope you clearly see what a wonderful place My Yard Live Beer Company is and visit them as soon as you are in the area. Those of you who live in the San Diego area are fortunate to have this gem right there in your backyard. Since this was the last episode, I have some housekeeping to clear up. First, I mentioned James Madison's nationally respected I'm Determined program many times this season, always naming the wrong college. That was a brain fog moment. I apologize. My 24-year-old daughter, who has Down syndrome and autism, attended many years of I'm Determined at James Madison University in the summers when she was in middle and high school. Second, it was my intention to have resources up on the Born Fabulous podcast website by the time season 3 aired. As of late October 2024, I still have not had time. So please be patient and periodically check the website for that updated page. It may not happen until early 2025 as the holidays are approaching fast. Third, if you did not hear all of season 3, I highly recommend you go back and hear the entire season. Sandra McElwee gives valuable insight into how California's extraordinary support services are set up, as she is a provider and a parent. Her son Sean's pride in his independence and his Sean Squad are infectious. Sean has Down syndrome and hearing loss. You may know him from A&E's Emmy-winning series Born This Way or his t-shirt business Shawnee's. Patty McEwen shares how she and her husband raised the firecracker lobbyist everyone knows and loves on Capitol Hill, Kayla McEwen. It isn't easy to see your young adult leave home, especially when that first move is to Washington, D.C. Kayla and her roommate Alyssa share details of how they chose their apartment, their chore chart, and much more. Kayla has just received an honorary doctorate from Syracuse University, and she also happens to have Down syndrome. Janice Fialka and Richard Feldman are both internationally respected speakers, presenters, and authors. They have followed the supported decision-making model with circles of support since their son Micah was very young in school. Their significant stories and sage thoughts continue to help countless families. Their son Micah is fiercely independent, living in New York while they live in Michigan. His episodes also feature a key support staff member, Catherine, who is wonderful. Micah is an instructional assistant at Syracuse University. He has an intellectual disability. My goal was to end this season with a married couple and their parents. I was so fortunate to be able to have very deep discussions with June and Jim Zoul and Melody and Bob Rupel at the same time. They are the parents of James Zoul and Kristen Rupel, who have been married over 6 years. James and Kristen are a fabulous couple who has been together over 16 years. They have Down syndrome. Being able to speak with both sets of parents was critically important, as having both sets of parents on the same page is key to the success of a married couple with intellectual disabilities. They shared their adult children's journeys from birth on through their courtship and marriage. Funny stories and very wise advice were key elements of their episodes. Because I am friends with June Zoul, it did not take long to realize that her son's employment journey needed to be shared, and their employer had to be interviewed. So after speaking with James and Kristen and their key support staff member, Lynn, the episodes that you just heard with Jamie Minotti and Mark McLarry from My Yard Live Beer Company were added. I am so happy to end this season with powerful words that can hopefully help move the employment needle forward for people with disabilities. Thank you to everyone who has been part of Season 3. I love you all. Short video clips from most episodes are available on our YouTube channel and on bornfabulouspodcast.com. You can also hear all released episodes of Born Fabulous Podcast on YouTube. Please follow and like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review wherever you heard this podcast. If you haven't heard Seasons 1 and 2 of Born Fabulous Podcast, please check them out after you hear this entire season. Now, please enjoy the full version of The Ring. The lyrics of this beautiful song are by Melissa Riggio, who was the focus of Season 1, Episodes 1 through 4. Melissa was my daughter's role model, and I revere her parents, Steve and Laura Riggio. Melissa had Down syndrome. The music and voice are by Rachel Fuller. Thank you so much for listening.